Welcome back to the channel everyone, and a very warm welcome to all the new viewers who are just discovering us today. This is the place where ordinary pocket change turns into extraordinary treasure stories and where hidden history, mystery, and massive value collide. And today we are diving deep into one of the most fascinating and mind-blowing stories in modern American numismatics. The legendary 1980 Washington quarter dollar that has stunned collectors, shocked experts, and sparked endless debate because of claims and possibilities that place its value as high as $16 million, a number that seems impossible for a simple clad quarter yet becomes believable once you understand the incredible chain of minting errors, production mistakes, historical circumstances, and ultra-rare anomalies that can transform a 25-cent coin into a once-in-a-lifetime masterpiece. So sit back, imagine the thrill of discovering something priceless in everyday change, and let's explore how the 1980 Denver Mint quarter became one of the most talked about coins in the world of rare money, beginning with the era itself, because context matters. The year 1980 was a turbulent and transitional time for the United States Mint. Inflation was high, metal prices were volatile, quality control standards were under pressure, and the minting facilities were producing massive quantities of coins to meet circulation demands, particularly quarters which were heavily used in commerce. Vending machines, parking meters, and public transport, and the Denver Mint was operating at full capacity, striking hundreds of millions of Washington quarters using copper-nickel clad planchets introduced in the mid-1960s after silver was removed from circulating coinage. And while these clad quarters were intended to be uniform, durable, and low in intrinsic metal value, the very speed and volume of production created opportunities for catastrophic errors to slip through, errors so extreme that they defied normal classification and entered the realm of legendary numismatic anomalies. And among these, the 1980 D quarter occupies a special place because of the unique convergence of multiple error types that could theoretically exist on a single coin, making it not just rare but potentially unique, which is the single most important factor in driving a coin's value into the multi-million-dollar range. Uniqueness combined with dramatic visual impact and historical intrigue. And one of the most critical aspects to understand is that no coin becomes worth millions because of just one small mistake. It is the stacking of errors, the perfect storm of things going wrong at the mint, that creates something so extraordinary that collectors and institutions are willing to pay unbelievable sums to own it. And when we talk about the rumored $16,001,980 D quarter, we are talking about a hypothetical or privately held example that embodies an extreme combination of mint errors including wrong planchet usage, off-metal composition, dramatic double strikes, misaligned dies, missing or partially missing clad layers, die rotation, double die characteristics, and possibly even transitional errors related to experimental alloys or rejected planchets, all occurring on a coin that somehow escaped detection and entered circulation or private hands, which is the kind of story that fuels dreams and keeps coin hunters searching through rolls decades later. So let's break down these possibilities in detail, starting with one of the most powerful value drivers in modern U.S. coins, the wrong planchet error. A wrong planchet error occurs when a coin is struck on a blank intended for a different denomination, composition, or even a foreign coin, and in the case of a 1980 D quarter, the most valuable scenarios involve it being struck on a silver planchet, a foreign silver planchet, or an experimental or test planchet never meant for circulation, although officially silver quarters for circulation ended in 1964, the U.S. Mint has historically conducted tests and experiments using various alloys even after official transitions, and rejected silver planchets, foreign contract planchets, or leftover blanks from commemorative or assay testing could theoretically remain in the production environment. And if a Denver Mint quarter die struck such a planchet in 1980, the resulting coin would immediately be one of the rarest wrong metal errors ever produced, and if that planchet had a significantly higher intrinsic metal value or an unusual composition not documented in mint records, the coin would become a numismatic mystery, driving speculation, academic interest, and fierce bidding wars, especially if metallurgical analysis confirmed an alloy inconsistent with any known regular or error issue. And wrong planchet errors alone can sell for tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars, but when combined with other errors, the value can escalate exponentially. Another major factor is missing clad layer errors. Clad quarters consist of a pure copper core sandwiched between two copper-nickel outer layers, and during the bonding and rolling process, these layers are fused together under high pressure, but if the bonding fails, one or both outer layers can separate before striking, resulting in a quarter that is struck with one side missing its clad layer, exposing the copper core, or in extreme cases struck on a core only. These errors are visually dramatic, lighter in weight, and highly collectible, but imagine a scenario where a 1980D quarter was struck on an incomplete or improperly bonded planchet that was also the wrong metal or wrong thickness, producing a coin with uneven coloration, unusual weight, and strange sound when dropped, a coin that immediately raises questions even to non-collectors. Now add to that a double strike error, where the coin is struck more than once by the dies, often at different angles, or with the coin partially out of position, creating overlapping images of Washington's portrait, the lettering, the date, and the eagle on the reverse. A dramatic double strike that is well centered and clearly visible can already be worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, but if the second strike is rotated or offset significantly, creating a ghostly, distorted design, the coin becomes a showpiece. And when such a double strike occurs on a wrong planchet or missing clad layer, the rarity multiplies, because the probability of all these events happening together is astronomically low, and collectors are obsessed with probability. The rarer the combination, the higher the price ceiling. Another layer of intrigue comes from doubled die errors, which occur when the die itself has a doubled image due to misalignment during the die creation process, resulting in doubled lettering, numbers, or design elements on every coin struck from that die. Doubled dies are different from machine doubling and are far more valuable, and if a 1980D quarter exhibited strong double die features on the date, the word Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, or the eagle's details, especially if the doubling is bold and clearly separated, that alone would make it a key variety. But imagine that double die being present on a coin that also has a wrong planchet and double strike. Now you are dealing with a coin that defies standard classification, a coin that could be considered unique, and uniqueness is what pushes values into 7 or 8 figures, because when there is only one example, the market is not set by previous auction results but by the desire of the wealthiest collectors and institutions. And speaking of institutions, museums and elite private collections play a huge role in million-dollar coin valuations. A coin that tells a story about minting failures, industrial processes, and historical transitions becomes more than money, it becomes an artifact. And the 1980D quarter sits at the crossroads of several important transitions, including post-silver coinage, high-speed minting technology, and economic pressure, which adds narrative weight to its appeal. Another possible error associated with extreme value is die rotation, where the reverse of the coin is rotated relative to the obverse, and while minor rotations are common, extreme rotations of 90, 120, or even 180 degrees are far rarer and far more valuable, and when combined with other errors, they create coins that look almost surreal, and collectors love coins that look wrong at first glance, coins that immediately signal something extraordinary. And then there is the possibility of an off-center strike, where the coin is not properly seated in the collar during striking, resulting in part of the design being missing and the blank planchet showing. Off-center errors can range from minor to extreme, and the most valuable are those that retain the full date and mint mark while being dramatically off-center. And if a 1980D quarter was struck off-center on a wrong planchet with a missing clad layer and then struck again, the resulting piece would be unlike anything else known, a coin that would likely be featured on the covers of numismatic publications and studied for years. And we cannot ignore the role of condition in million-dollar coins, because even the rarest error must have eye appeal. A heavily damaged or corroded coin will never reach top value, but if this hypothetical 1980D quarter survived in high grade, with sharp details, minimal wear, and strong visual contrast between metal layers or strike impressions, its desirability would skyrocket, especially if it was certified by a top grading service with detailed attribution of all errors present. Certification is crucial in establishing legitimacy, provenance, and market confidence. Next, 1985D quarter dollar. Today to our channel where curiosity meets hidden treasure and everyday pocket change transforms into legendary wealth, because in this episode we are diving deep into one of the most talked about, whispered about, and endlessly fascinating stories in modern American coin collecting, the almost mythical 1985 Washington quarter dollar that is said by collectors, auction rumors, and numismatic legends to carry a mind-blowing potential value of up to $14 million due to an extraordinary convergence of rare minting errors, dramatic production mistakes, and once-in-a-lifetime possibilities that could turn an ordinary-looking coin into a life-changing discovery. And as we explore this story together, imagine holding a simple quarter in your hand, the same type you might receive as change at a store. Yet within its metal surface lies a combination of flaws so rare and so perfectly aligned that they elevate it from spare change to a legendary artifact. And to understand why the 1985 quarter has become such an object of fascination, we must first appreciate the era in which it was created, because the mid-1980s were a period of intense pressure at the United States Mint, with massive production demands, aging equipment, rapid die usage, and quality control challenges that sometimes allowed extraordinary mistakes to slip through, and the Denver Mint, marked by the D Mint mark, was producing millions upon millions of Washington quarters intended for circulation, most of which are still worth only face value today, but within those massive production runs the possibility existed for a tiny number of coins to be struck under abnormal conditions, and it is within these abnormal conditions that the legend of the $14,001,985 quarter is born. A legend built on the idea that a single coin could display multiple high-value errors simultaneously rather than just one, because while single errors are interesting and collectible, it is the stacking of errors, the perfect storm of mistakes, that creates the kind of rarity capable of commanding prices that seem unbelievable to the average person. And among the most important of these errors discussed in relation to this coin is the concept of a wrong planchet strike, where the quarter design is struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination or even a different metal composition. And in the mid-1980s the Mint handled planchets for cents, nickels, dimes, quarters, and occasionally foreign coinage, which opened the door to the possibility, however small, that a quarter die could strike a planchet not meant for it, resulting in incorrect weight, thickness, color, and metallic composition. And when such a wrong planchet error is combined with sharp details and minimal wear, collectors take notice. But the legend of the $14 million coin goes further by suggesting that the 1985 quarter could have been struck on an experimental or transitional alloy planchet, perhaps one not officially released or documented, which would make metallurgical analysis crucial and could elevate the coin into a category of extreme rarity, because collectors are not only buying the error, they are buying the mystery, the unanswered questions, and the historical intrigue surrounding how such a coin could exist. And adding to this intrigue is the idea of a dramatic double die error, where the design elements such as the lettering, date, or Washington's profile show strong, clear doubling that is not caused by damage or wear but by misalignment during the die creation process, and true double dies are among the most desirable errors in numismatics, especially when the doubling is bold and visible to the naked eye. And in the hypothetical case of the 1985 quarter legend, the doubling is said to appear not only on the obverse but also on the reverse, affecting United States of America, e pluribus unum, and even the eagle's wings, creating a visual spectacle that immediately signals something extraordinary. And when collectors imagine such a coin, they imagine crisp, separated letters, not flat or machine doubled, but rounded and clearly defined, the kind of doubling that can only come from a true double die. And then there is the possibility of a major off-center strike combined with a partial collar error, where the coin is not properly seated during striking, resulting in a design that is shifted dramatically toward one edge while still retaining a partial date and mint mark. And off-center errors are popular on their own, but when combined with a partial collar they can produce a coin with an expanded diameter, uneven rim, and a strikingly distorted appearance that feels almost sculptural. And now imagine that same off-center strike also displaying a broad strike effect, where the collar fails entirely and the coin spreads outward during striking, creating a flattened, oversized quarter with unusual proportions. And if such a coin were also struck multiple times, a phenomenon known as multiple strike error, the layers of design impressions could overlap in chaotic yet fascinating ways, each strike adding to the story of mechanical failure and human oversight that allowed the coin to escape the mint. And one of the most dramatic claims associated with the $14 million valuation is the idea of a dramatic die break or retained cut error, where a large portion of the die breaks away, leaving a raised, blob-like area of metal on the finished coin. And while small die chips are common and relatively inexpensive, massive retained cuts that alter the coin's appearance significantly are far rarer, especially when they occur on both obverse and reverse dies simultaneously, and such a coin would show a visible, raised area that interrupts the design, perhaps covering part of Washington's hair or the eagle's wing, creating a unique fingerprint that cannot be replicated, and beyond visible errors there is also the concept of internal flaws, such as lamination errors where layers of metal peel or separate due to improper bonding of the alloy, and a dramatic lamination that remains attached rather than falling away can add texture, depth, and visual intrigue, and when combined with other errors it contributes to the narrative that this coin was produced under severely flawed conditions. And another layer of possibility involves the condition of the coin itself, because error coins are often heavily circulated and worn, but the legend suggests that this particular 1985 D quarter survived in an exceptionally high grade, perhaps mint state or even proof-like, with strong luster, minimal contact marks, and sharp details, which would multiply its desirability, since high-grade error coins are exponentially rarer than worn examples, and collectors are willing to pay staggering premiums for the best-known specimen of a particular error type, especially if it is unique or one of only a handful in existence, and uniqueness is the keyword that drives the $14 million figure, because the idea is not that all 1985 D quarters are valuable, but that one single coin, or perhaps a tiny number of coins, could possess a once-in-a-generation combination of errors never officially recorded, never repeated, and never released intentionally, and the market value of such a coin would not be determined by price guides or previous sales but by competitive bidding among elite collectors, museums, and private investors who understand that owning such a piece means owning a chapter of minting history that can never be replaced, and stories like this gain momentum through auction rumors, private sales, and word of mouth within the numismatic community, where a single dramatic discovery can inspire thousands of collectors to re-examine their change, search through old rolls, and revisit inherited collections, and even though the probability of finding such a coin is incredibly small, the possibility itself is enough to fuel fascination, because numismatics is as much about hope and curiosity as it is about metal and mint marks, and the 1985 D quarter legend also touches on the idea of transitional errors, where dies or planchets from one design or composition period overlap with another. And while the Washington quarter design did not change in 1985, the mint was constantly experimenting with alloys, die steels, and production techniques, and any undocumented experiment that accidentally entered circulation would instantly become a numismatic holy grail, and metallurgical testing revealing an unexpected alloy composition could transform a coin from interesting to priceless. And another factor often discussed is the alignment error, where the obverse and reverse designs are rotated significantly out of their normal orientation, creating a rotated die error that becomes more valuable as the degree of rotation increases. And a dramatic rotation combined with other errors adds yet another layer to the story, because it demonstrates systemic failure rather than a single isolated mistake. And then there is the human element, the idea that somewhere in the chain of production, inspection, and distribution, human error allowed this coin to slip through unnoticed, and that same human curiosity decades later might rediscover it, turning an everyday object into a symbol of chance and fortune. And this is why stories like the $14,001,985 D quarter resonate so strongly with audiences, because they blur the line between reality and possibility, between what is common and what is extraordinary, and they remind us that history is not only written in books but also struck into metal, sometimes imperfectly, and those imperfections are what collectors cherish most. Next, 1983 P quarter dollar. Today on the channel where everyday pocket change turns into extraordinary stories of hidden wealth, mystery, and history, and in this episode we are diving deep into one of the most fascinating and talked about legends in modern American numismatics, the 1983 P Washington quarter dollar. A coin that on the surface looks completely ordinary yet has captured the imagination of collectors worldwide because of the idea that a single example, under an extraordinary combination of errors, mistakes, conditions, and historical circumstances, could be valued as high as $15 million, a number that sounds unbelievable until you begin to understand how the world of rare coins actually works, where value is not determined by face value or even precious metal content alone but by rarity, demand, story, condition, and the sheer improbability of survival. And the 1983 P quarter sits at the crossroads of all these factors, beginning with the year itself, which occupies a unique and sometimes misunderstood place in U.S. mint history because 1983 was part of a short era when mint sets were not officially produced for collectors, meaning that high-quality examples of circulating coinage from this year are dramatically scarcer in top condition than surrounding years. And this alone already places the 1983 P quarter at a disadvantage when it comes to survival in pristine form because nearly every single coin struck at the Philadelphia Mint that year was intended for circulation and was dumped straight into the channels of commerce where it would be handled, dropped, scraped, counted, rolled, bagged, and worn down by millions of transactions, making the existence of any example with near-perfect surfaces and sharp details incredibly rare, and rarity in condition is one of the most powerful drivers of value in numismatics. But that is only the foundation of the story because what pushes this coin into the realm of legendary valuations are the extraordinary errors and mistakes that could theoretically occur during its production, each one stacking on top of the other like layers of improbability, starting with planchet errors, because if a 1983 P quarter were struck on an incorrect planchet, such as one intended for a different denomination or even a foreign coin blank, the resulting piece would immediately stand out as an off-metal error. And if that planchet were composed of an unusual alloy, perhaps experimental, transitional, or wrongfully mixed during a period when the mint was under immense pressure to produce large volumes of coins quickly, the uniqueness of such a piece would be unquestionable, especially if metallurgical testing confirmed that the composition does not match any officially documented issue, and then consider the possibility of a double die obverse or reverse error, where the hubbing process imparted a doubled image into the die itself, resulting in strong, clearly visible doubling on the date, lettering, or devices. And while minor doubling exists on many coins, a dramatic and well-centered double die on a Washington quarter would be a major rarity, particularly if it affected key design elements like the motto, the date, or Washington's profile. And now imagine combining that with a major misalignment during striking, such as an off-center strike that still retains full date and mint mark, a collar error that allows the coin to expand beyond its normal diameter, or even a broad strike that produces an unusually large and distorted coin while preserving critical identifying features, and the rarity increases exponentially with each additional anomaly, because error collectors place immense value on coins that demonstrate clear and educational examples of the mint's mechanical failures, and the more dramatic and clean the error, the more desirable it becomes. But we are still not at the $15 million level until we introduce the most extreme possibilities, such as a wrong design strike where a 1983 P quarter is struck using a die intended for an entirely different coin, perhaps a foreign coin, a metal, or even a pattern or test die, a scenario that sounds impossible yet history has shown time and again that the mint, being a human-run institution with complex machinery, has produced astonishing mistakes that escape detection. And if such a coin were authenticated by multiple top-tier grading services, its uniqueness would place it in a category of its own, because unique coins do not have price guides, they have auction records, and auction records are driven by competitive bidding among wealthy collectors who want something no one else can ever own, and this is where the idea of a $15 million valuation begins to make sense, not as a guaranteed price but as a theoretical ceiling reached under perfect conditions, especially if the coin also possessed impeccable preservation, perhaps having been saved immediately after striking and stored in an environment that prevented oxidation, abrasion, or contamination, resulting in blazing luster, razor-sharp details, and flawless surfaces that would earn it the highest possible numerical grade. And in the modern coin market, top population coins with extraordinary stories regularly achieve prices that would have seemed absurd just decades ago. And the psychological factor of owning a coin from 1983, a year with no official mint sets, with a major undocumented error certified as unique, cannot be overstated, because collectors are not just buying metal, they are buying a story, a piece of history, and the right to say they own something that rewrites what we thought we knew about U.S. coinage. And then there is the factor of discovery, because the idea that such a coin could still theoretically be hiding in a forgotten roll, an old jar, or an inherited collection fuels endless fascination and searching, and this possibility alone drives demand for the entire series, pushing up prices even for more modest error examples and high-grade normal strikes. And when you add in the role of media attention, social sharing, and viral stories, a single extraordinary coin can capture global attention, drawing in not just traditional numismatists but investors, historians, and the general public, all of whom contribute to an environment where record-breaking prices become possible, especially when wealthy buyers see rare coins as portable stores of value that combine artistry, history, and exclusivity. And the 1983 P-quarter benefits from the familiar Washington design, which has been a cornerstone of American coinage since 1932, making it instantly recognizable and emotionally resonant, and this familiarity paradoxically enhances the shock and appeal of discovering something extraordinary in something so ordinary, reinforcing the narrative that treasures can be hiding in plain sight. And when auction houses present such a coin, they do not merely list its specifications, they tell its story in dramatic detail, emphasizing every error, every anomaly, every scientific test result, every expert opinion, building a narrative that transforms the coin into a cultural artifact. And in such a setting, bidding can escalate rapidly as collectors compete not just on price but on prestige. And while $15 million represents an extreme upper bound, it serves as a symbol of what is possible when rarity, condition, error, complexity, historical context, and market psychology align perfectly. And even if no such example has yet publicly sold for that exact figure, the concept itself reshapes how collectors view their change, encouraging careful examination, education, and appreciation of the minting process, and ultimately reminding us that the value of a coin is not fixed but fluid, shaped by human interest and imagination as much as by metal and machinery. And this is why the legend of the 1983 P-quarter continues to grow, inspiring collectors to look closer, learn more, and believe that somewhere out there, an unassuming quarter could be worth more than most houses, not because of magic, but because of a perfect storm of errors, mistakes, survival, and story that transforms a simple piece of currency into a numismatic icon. Last, 1973 quarter dollar. Today we are diving deep into one of the most talked about and controversial coins in modern American numismatics, a 1973 Washington quarter dollar that has been whispered about in collector circles as being worth up to $13 million, a number that sounds impossible at first but becomes fascinating once you understand how extreme minting errors, rare production anomalies, historical circumstances, collector psychology, and perfect timing can combine to create a coin that transcends its face value and enters the realm of legendary status. Because the 1973 quarter at first glance looks like a normal clad Washington quarter struck during a time when the United States Mint was still adjusting to post-silver coinage, inflation pressures, aging equipment, and massive production demands, yet within that ordinary appearance lies the potential for extraordinary mistakes. And those mistakes are what drive collectors wild, starting with the fact that 1973 was a year when millions of quarters were produced at multiple mints using copper-nickel clad planchets and high-speed presses, which meant that errors could slip through unnoticed, including off-metal strikes where a quarter might be struck on a planchet intended for another denomination or even on a foreign planchet, creating a coin with the wrong weight, wrong thickness, and sometimes even a different color or magnetic property. And when such an error is paired with a clear readable date and strong strike, it becomes exponentially more valuable, especially if the metal composition is something never officially issued for that denomination, such as a quarter struck on a silver planchet years after silver was supposedly removed from circulation, or even more incredibly on experimental or transitional planchets that were never meant to leave the mint. And then there are double die errors, which are among the most beloved mistakes in coin collecting, where the die itself was improperly manufactured and every coin struck from it carries a doubled image. And in a hypothetical ultra-rare 1973 quarter, the doubling could be dramatic, visible on Washington's profile, the date, the word liberty, or "In God We Trust," creating a bold eye-catching effect that collectors pay premiums for. But to reach multi-million-dollar territory, the doubling would need to be paired with extreme rarity, perhaps a die that was caught almost immediately after a few strikes, meaning only one or two examples exist, and rarity is the heartbeat of value, because collectors are not just buying metal, they are buying exclusivity, the chance to own something almost no one else on Earth can ever have. And beyond double dies there are wrong mint errors where a coin carries a mint mark that should not exist for that year or location, such as a proof-only mint mark appearing on a business strike, or a mint mark punched over another mint mark, creating an impossible combination that suggests human intervention or experimental tooling. And in 1973, when mint marks were still manually punched into dies, such errors were more possible than today, adding fuel to the imagination of what might have slipped through. And then there are blockage errors, where one coin gets stuck to a die and impresses its mirror image onto the next coin, resulting in a ghostly reverse design on one side. And if such an error occurred on a pristine 1973 quarter with full details and minimal damage, it would already be worth a fortune. But pair that with another anomaly like an off-center strike where part of the design is missing yet the date is fully visible, and the value climbs even higher, because collectors love errors that tell a story of chaos inside the mint, a frozen moment where machinery, metal, and human oversight collided. And one of the most dramatic possibilities is a mule error, which occurs when two dies from different denominations are accidentally paired together, such as a quarter obverse with a completely different reverse never intended for it. And genuine mules are among the rarest and most expensive coins on the planet, sometimes selling for hundreds of thousands or even millions depending on the combination. And a 1973 quarter mule involving a die from another denomination or even a foreign coin would instantly become a numismatic sensation, written about in books, studied by experts, and fought over by elite collectors. And condition plays a massive role as well, because even the rarest error loses value if the coin is heavily worn or damaged after leaving the mint. But imagine a 1973 quarter with multiple mint errors preserved in near-perfect uncirculated or proof-like condition, with sharp strikes, original luster, and no signs of cleaning or tampering. A coin like that would be one of a kind, and uniqueness is where price ceilings disappear. Because when two billionaires want the same coin, the value becomes whatever the highest bidder is willing to pay. And this is how theoretical values like $13 million enter the conversation, not because there is a price guide listing it, but because history has shown that singular coins with compelling stories can reach astonishing prices at auction, especially when backed by third-party grading and authentication from respected services that confirm the coin is genuine, document every error in detail, and assign it a grade that reassures buyers. And the story aspect cannot be underestimated, because collectors love provenance, knowing where a coin came from, who discovered it, and how it survived unnoticed for decades, perhaps pulled from pocket change, a bank roll, or an old jar of coins in an attic. And that narrative transforms a piece of metal into a legend, and legends command premiums far beyond their technical specifications. And there is also the factor of timing and market psychology, because interest in error coins has exploded in the age of YouTube, social media, and online auctions, where stories spread instantly and millions of people suddenly become aware of a specific coin, driving demand and competition. And when demand rises faster than supply, especially when supply is literally one, prices can skyrocket. And collectors are not just competing with other hobbyists but with investors who see rare coins as portable stores of value, hedges against inflation, and tangible assets with historical significance. And the 1973 quarter exists at an interesting crossroads of history, post-silver but pre-digital minting, a time when mistakes were still physical and human, not instantly caught by computers, making the idea of an extreme error more plausible. And while most 1973 quarters in circulation are worth only face value or a small premium, the possibility that an extraordinary specimen exists keeps people searching, checking dates, weighing coins, looking for anomalies in lettering, alignment, thickness, and sound, because the thrill of the hunt is part of what makes numismatics so addictive. And every time someone hears a story about a coin worth millions, it reinforces the idea that hidden treasures are still out there, waiting to be discovered by someone with curiosity and patience. And even if a $13 million 1973 quarter has never publicly sold, the theoretical valuation is built on real principles observed in past record-breaking sales, where rarity, condition, error severity, and story aligned perfectly. And that is why collectors continue to talk about these possibilities, not as guaranteed outcomes, but as reminders that the ordinary can become extraordinary under the right circumstances, and that a simple quarter, something we handle every day without thinking, can become a symbol of history, error, and opportunity. And as you go through your own change after watching this, remember that while most coins will never be worth more than their face value, the next legendary discovery always begins as an overlooked piece of metal, and the excitement comes from knowing that the door is never completely closed, and that is why stories like the 1973 quarter valued at $13 million continue to inspire collectors around the world, fueling imagination, education, and the endless search for the next great numismatic miracle.